In the age of kingdoms and crowns, when steel ruled over stone, and the weight of a single betrayal could decide the fate of thousands, there lived a man whose story was carved not in parchment, but in blood. His name was Kael, son of Lord Eric of Davenmoor, a noble house sworn to loyalty, justice, and honor. But honor, as the world would soon learn, was nothing in the shadow of envy. Kael's life began in peace. His father ruled their lands with fairness. His mother taught compassion, and his younger sister Liana filled their castle with laughter. Yet, in every court where gold glittered and swords shone, jealousy always grew like a serpent in the dark. And the serpent that slithered closest was Duke Malric, a man with ambition burning hotter than loyalty, a man whose tongue dripped with false promises, and whose heart beat only for power. For years, Malric smiled at the House of Davenmoor, feasting at their tables, laughing in their halls, whispering oaths of eternal brotherhood. But beneath his cloak he sharpened daggers meant for the very family that trusted him. The night of betrayal came cloaked in silence. A moonless sky stretched over the valley. Torches flickered along the castle walls, and the guards thought all was well. Yet inside, treachery had already seeped through the gates. Malric's soldiers, disguised as merchants, poisoned the wine. And when the feast began, Kael's father Arik raised his goblet to honor friendship, not knowing it would be his last. Kael remembered the sound before he remembered the pain, the crash of steel against steel, the screams that tore through the night. He remembered his mother's hands, pushing him toward the hidden passage. He remembered his sister's cry, her small voice begging him not to leave. And he remembered Malric's face, the smile that was colder than any blade. That night, Kael's family was slaughtered, his father cut down at the throne, his mother slain before the hearth, his sister dragged away into the shadows, her fate unknown. And Kael was left broken, his body pierced, his heart torn, his name erased. He should have died. He should have joined his family in silence. But fate chose differently. A wandering hermit, old and scarred by wars long forgotten, found him bleeding in the forest. For weeks, Kael lingered between life and death, drifting through nightmares of fire and blood. Yet every time his soul tried to escape, the memory of his family pulled him back. Every breath became a promise. Every heartbeat became a vow. And so, as Kael rose from the ashes of his past, he swore an oath before the gods and before the ghosts of his blood. I will not rest. I will not falter. I will not forgive. By the steel of my blade, by the fire of my soul, I will bring ruin upon those who betrayed us. I will make them choke on their treachery, and I will not die until the name of Davenmoor is written again in honor or in the blood of our enemies. Years passed. The boy who had once laughed in the halls of Davenmoor became a shadow. He trained in silence, his hands learning the weight of every weapon. He mastered the bow, the sword, the dagger. He learned to move like the wind and strike like the storm. The hermit, who once pitied him, became his teacher until the day he too died, leaving Kael alone once more. But Kael was no longer the boy who had fled in terror. He was the wolf returning to the forest. He was vengeance walking on 2 feet. And vengeance, like fire, could not be contained forever. The kingdom had changed. Malric now sat on the throne he had stolen. His banner stretched across the land. He was king in name, but tyrant in truth. Villages starved under heavy taxes. Soldiers pillaged without mercy. And the people whispered not of Malric's glory, but of the ghost that haunted the borders. A man cloaked in black. A man who struck in the night. A man who killed Malric's soldiers one by one, and left only a single word carved into wood, stone, or flesh. Davenmoor. Kael had become a phantom. To the poor, he was a savior. To the crown, he was a traitor. To Malric, He was a nightmare he thought he had buried years ago, and thus the game began. The hunter, who thought himself victorious, discovered that the prey still lived and prey no longer ran. Prey had grown claws. Kael's revenge was not a storm that fell in one night. It was a slow fire, consuming piece by piece. He hunted those who had betrayed his family, the captain who had opened the gates, the advisor who had whispered lies, the knight who had swung his sword against Eric. One by one, they fell, and with each death, Kael's heart grew heavier. Not lighter, for revenge was not peace. Revenge was survival. Yet in his darkest nights, Kael remembered Liana, his sister, whose fate was still unknown, and that memory kept him from surrendering to despair. If she lived, then his fight was not only for vengeance, it was for her. And so, the man called Kael began his march, his shadow stretching longer, his name whispered louder. The people who had once bowed to Malric now looked to the horizon, waiting for the day the ghost of Davenmoor would rise, not as a shadow, but as a storm. And that day was coming, because Kael had sworn an oath, and oaths, once written in blood, are never broken.